It's no secret the same teams have dominated college football for decades. Last season gave us moments that'll live forever. But now that's history, and a new season dawns.
This is the beginning.
Who's destined for greatness? Who's gonna rise from the shadows to dominate the gridiron this year? What's up, college football fans? Welcome back to Aim Up College Football. I'm JC, and today we're gonna be diving into our preseason top 10. Before we kick it off, leave your top 10 in the comment section down below. I'm interested to see how your guys' top 10 differs from mine, and I would like to hear why I'm wrong about each and every team in the comment section. Coming in at number 10, we have the Clemson Tigers. You might be thinking, JC, I don't know how you got Clemson in the top 10. They had a disappointing year last year. I would challenge you then. I would say, how can an 11-3 season, an ACC championship, a New Year's Six Bowl appearance be considered a frustrating season? For many of you watching, that would be the best season your team's had in years. Why is it different for Dabo Swinney? Well, the answer kind of lies in his own success, right? He's had so much success recently that felt like a letdown of a season for him. So much so that he had to say goodbye to his longtime associate and one of his good friends, Brandon Streeter, after just one season as offensive coordinator. Garrett Riley is who he replaced him with, and Riley was the mastermind behind that TCU offense in 2022. A lot of people credit the success of that team not only with Max Duggan, but also with Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator. Riley himself has got a promising young quarterback to mold at Clemson, Cade Klubnik, but we're looking at the team as a whole here. So we're going to need some key players for Clemson to step up at receiver and at the offensive line in particular. Despite losing some of their key contributors on defense from a season ago, Clemson expects to be just as dominant as they usually are on that end, ranking amongst college football's finest. 2023 is shaping up to be a dynamic year for the Clemson Tigers, and I'm excited to see what they've got in store for us. Coming in at number 9, we have perhaps the most iconic team in college football. Their uniforms are absolutely to die for. The USC Trojans. And after a significant improvement last year under Coach Lincoln Riley going 11-1 in the regular season, USC is aiming up to make the college football playoff and contend for a title here in 2023. The team's led by Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams. He was the leader of one of the top offenses in the nation last year. However, their defense was absolutely atrocious. They had by far and away the best turnover margin in the country. You're like, wait a minute, JC. That's a great defensive stat. And they still ranked 93rd in defense. That illustrates how horrendous they were on defense last year. However, with transfers including defensive lineman Bear Alexander, who played and contributed to Georgia last year as a freshman, and Oklahoma State star linebacker Mason Cobb, we anticipate USC to be much better defensively this year than they were last season, and that should result in a much better team. But the Trojans are led by Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams and one of the best coaches in the game in Lincoln Riley. So if anybody can overcome defensive deficiencies, it's the combination of these two. Coming in at number 8, we got the Longhorns, baby. And I know we all love to hate Texas because of the roller coaster ride they've been on the past 10 seasons or so. But in 2023, this could just be the year, the first time since 2009 that the Longhorns win the Big 12 Conference. It'd be a great way for them to go out too. As many of you know, after this season, Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. So it would be super fitting for what's been the most dominant team, the most iconic team in the Big 12 Conference to win it on their way out. This year, Longhorn fans are ecstatic for the season for good reason. They have 15 starters coming back, including quarterback sensation, former number 1 overall player in his high school class, Quinn Ewers, and they have one of the best wide receiver rooms in America. They do face an early legitimate test against Alabama, but I actually think playing this game in week 2 plays more into the favor of Texas than it does Alabama. At this point in time, me and you know just as well as Nick Saban that we got no idea who the quarterback's going to be at Alabama come week 2. Texas, they have their star. Alabama, losing their best defensive player of all time in Will Anderson. Texas is returning a lot of production on that end. Alabama needs some more time to get that chemistry up, and I think Texas is kind of rolling from a season ago. So I do expect Texas to take care of Alabama in week 2, and I expect Texas to be competing for a college football playoff spot come December. Coming in at number 7, we have the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State is led by Heisman Trophy hopeful quarterback Jordan Travis, and they have a tough test in their opener against LSU in Orlando. And then 3 weeks after that tough game against LSU, the Florida State Seminoles have to go on the road to Clemson. But if they can navigate this month of September, it's pretty easy sailing for the Noles the rest of the way. You might as well ride them into the playoff because they're probably going to be there. Mike Norvell's Florida State squad is shaping up to be one of the best in college football. They have a Heisman Trophy hopeful quarterback, elite offensive weapons around him, and a solid defense. I expect Florida State to make a push not only for the ACC title in 2023, but also the national title. Coming in at number 6, I have the Washington Huskies. So, what's the deal with the Huskies in 2023? Well, in 2022, the Huskies finished with 11 wins, one of their best seasons to date, including signature wins against both Texas and Oregon. So the fans can expect the Huskies to build on that success from last year and then kind of build on it, right? They kind of played up and down. If they played a really good team, they played up to that level. And if they played a really bad team, they played down to their level. We're kind of looking to see more of an even keel Washington Huskies team that's at that elite level all season. That's what I expect to see from them, and that's what the Husky Nation expects to see from them. They do have a tougher schedule this year than last year. They got a road trip to Michigan State, and then they have back-to-back games against USC, the favorites to win the Pac-12 this year, and Utah, the reigning back-to-back Pac-12 champion. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes. And the Buckeyes ended last year with back-to-back losses for the first time since 2011. And for the Buckeyes to return to contention again this year, the defense has to find that pass rush mojo back. In 2019, 2016, some of the best years to date for Ohio State's defense, they had an elite pass rush. And that's what made those defensive backs that we know are so good at Ohio State even better. Whenever that quarterback has even less time to think about his next read, it allows those defensive backs to jump those routes and take advantage of those poor decisions. Ohio State's going to be bringing in a new quarterback this year. So far during fall camp, we've not heard good things. I'm not too concerned about that. You know, you practice for a reason. You practice to get better. But keep an eye out on Ohio State this year. I am giving them the benefit of the doubt here, putting them at the number 5 spot because of their pedigree as a program. But with a new quarterback, questions on the offensive line, and road games against Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Michigan, it could really go one of two ways for the Buckeyes. They could have a very impressive season where they overcame a lot of things and got a lot of key road wins, or it could be a complete disaster of a season, seeing Ohio State fall to maybe 3rd or 4th in their own conference. Coming in at the number 4 spot, we got Sweet Home Alabama. And man, this is a high ranking. You might say, JC, this is not a high ranking. I've seen Alabama ranked number 1 for like 40 consecutive weeks before. True. But this year, Nick Saban is losing his best offensive player ever and his best defensive player ever. Bryce Young, the best offensive player ever, and Will Anderson, their best defensive player ever. Alabama enters 2023 with more questions than I've ever seen in my time as a college football fan. Alabama, year in and year out, has one of the most talented rosters of college football, but despite this, 2 of the past 4 years, they haven't even been in the playoff. Returning to the playoffs this year will require the Tide's offense to go to the next level and for the next star to emerge. You know, whether that's one of their quarterbacks or their offensive line emerges as that star, where they're just so physical, they get back to that traditional Alabama way of just running you over and beating you with good defense. That's also a possibility. That's in the cards for Alabama in 2023, and they can win every game on their schedule, win the SEC championship, and win the national championship that way. So keep your eye out for Alabama and the Crimson Tide in 2023. Everybody's sleeping on them, but they could easily win a national championship. Coming in at number 3, we got the LSU Tigers. And that's right, I got the homer pick as the number 3 team. And you might be wondering, JC, that seems like a little biased. Why is LSU the 3rd best team in the country? And I'm going to tell you why. They're one of the only teams on this list returning their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterback, and head coach. That means that the continuity is already going to be there for LSU. It's going to be like second nature. I think they're going to be even better this year than they were last year. And last year, they won the West, and they had some of the highest highs of any team. The thing is, they were just up and down, right? Kind of the same thing that we talked about with Texas, right? LSU's up and down, playing to the level of their competition. I think this year, with a whole offseason under Brian Kelly, they've got that culture installed where they're going to just play at their level at all times. And I think if LSU's playing at their level and it's at their best level, they're going to be competing for a national championship come December. Coming in at number 2, we got the Michigan Wolverines, and this could easily be the year that Michigan wins it all. I know that they've not been able to get over the hump the last 2 years, losing in the semifinal game, but here's the fact. Michigan had a similar type of hump against Ohio State. You remember a couple years ago, people were asking the question of, can Jim Harbaugh beat the Ohio State Buckeyes?
And I think there's something in Jim Harbaugh's brain. I don't know what it is. I don't really want to know. He is incapable of beating his biggest rival.
So, I get the hype around Ohio State and Penn State this year, but if we're talking about the Big Ten in 2023, all the roads lead to that dirty girl, Ann Arbor in Michigan. Why, you ask? Let's break it down. Their offense is geared up with J.J. McCarthy returning at the helm, and they seem to be as formidable as ever. Blake Corum's returning. Their run game's elite. Their defense is looking equally, if not more robust than their offense. And combine this with their cupcake non-conference schedule and their Ohio State game being at home this year, I expect the Michigan Wolverines to win the Big Ten and compete for a national championship. And coming in at number 1, is anybody surprised? It's the top dogs, the Georgia Bulldogs. And they're looking to be the first team since the 1930s, Minnesota Golden Gophers, to three-peat. Just to give you guys an idea of how damn long ago this was, this is what the game looked like back then. Yep, you heard that right. Georgia's looking to do something that hasn't been done in nearly a century. And most viewers expect Georgia to do just that this year, despite facing several challenges. Let's talk about the changes. So, Kirby Smart, the disciple of Nick Saban, arguably the GOAT, the best college football coach of all time, lost his Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback, Stetson Bennett, and some of his key defenders, Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo, Christopher Smith, and that's a lot of firepower leaving the team. But don't worry, there's no sign of things slowing down in Athens. Honestly, if you don't have Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs number 1 coming into the season, you've either not been watching the last 2 seasons or you're a Bulldogs hater. They are the number 1 team, and there's no doubt about it going into the 2023 season. All right, football fans, so here's the wrap-up. From the Dogs down in Georgia to the Trojans and USC, our preseason top 10 promises, rivalries, upsets, and the unexpected all season long. Michigan's roaring back after an impressive season, and LSU, they got that Bayou magic. We saw a little bit of that versus Bama. Speaking of, is Bama going to get back to their old ways and just be the physical force on the line, pushing people around? Or is, Florida State going to come out of nowhere and surprise everybody? Or, maybe it's Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns. I think one of these 10 teams are going to make major noise this year. That's all we got for you today, college football fans. Be sure to smash that like button if you enjoyed and subscribe for updates throughout the offseason and throughout the regular season. We got the latest on fall camp. We got rankings. Speaking of fall camp, did you guys hear about that massive 50-man brawl at LSU? Absolutely insane. We have exclusive footage of it at Aim Up. Check it out right over here if you guys happen to miss that video. You do not want to miss this. 50-man brawl at LSU. We're talking teammates fighting teammates, coaches fighting coaches. It was a mess. Click right here.